This is the pen testing bootcamp day one. We have 10 days in total of 4 hours ahead of us, which is going to consist of a bunch of, first of all, documents we're going to go through. We're going to learn what kind of documents you need, what they look like, and what kind of pen tests there are today. We're going to look at some examples as well, and then we're going to set them up ourselves. And then for tomorrow, we're going to look at the different methodologies that are available to us. And then for day three, we're going to do network hacking, then a bunch of web exploits, OWASP top 10, API top 10, and mobile top 10. And we're going to finish by doing a full pen test on a website that I've developed to be vulnerable, of course, with about 26 or 27 vulnerabilities. Might be more by the time that we end this bootcamp. Anyway, I'm going to start by sharing my screen because that might be a little bit easier for you guys to follow, of course. And let's see, 1080p, go live. There we go. Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Hi, my name is Keith. I was a geomantistic, whoa, surveyor slash civil engineer technologist and project manager by training, which I did for well over 20 years. Then I became a manager and got back into magic and writing. I made a story that brought Boba Fett back and was published with Stephen King once. Wow. I'm also becoming a polyglot, having mastered English in Canada, British English, and Amher slang. I am now working on my French, Spanish, German, Esperanto, Irish Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic, Italian, and Ukrainian. I saw the need for the cybersecurity when I was in college, but there was no clear path to it, and I wanted to finish what I started for college. Now I see there are paths, and it's a matter of seizing opportunities like this. I've been working at this for nearly a year, and to get this sort of skill, learning through TryHackMe, Cisco, YWM, Udemy, and the Python Institute. Others, and of course, the courses. Yes, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Awesome having you here. I saw your profile and I saw you were wearing a suit, and I love people who wear suits. It demonstrates kind of professionalism, even if you don't really have to wear a suit. Like if it's an informal meeting or something like that, it will show that you take things seriously. So welcome, welcome. Let's start first of all by no. Let's not start with an assignment. That would be cruel. Let's start with telling you guys what pen testing is all about. Because of course, yeah, by the way, you guys should be able to see my screen. Feel free to let me know if that's not the case. Let's go for the slideshow option. There we go. First of all, we need to talk about what a pen test is. And I've written down 1 hour here, but it will take less time to explain. But I'm going to try to explain things in excruciating detail because I want everybody to know exactly the same thing. You can take notes if you would like, but I've sent the course materials as well, so you don't have to. Just if you really want to write things down in your own wording, it might help a little bit, and especially the things that you don't really understand. If something's news for you, then it will help to write it down. I would advise you to write things down, to actually go grab a piece of paper or a book and a pen, and then because like writing is a lot better, and then later on you can put it into a notebook or whatever and you can write it down pretty, but you don't want to be distracted by having to take notes while you're hacking. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? Okay, sorry,
I was just apologizing for I didn't realize the class had already started and I was waiting in the other room.
Oh, it's okay, sorry about that. Sorry, my friend. It's not a problem at all. This is recorded anyway, so you can watch the beginning. Um, let's see, Mr. Help Desk guy can only see me. Can everybody else see me, or let me see? I've downloaded everything. Yep, day 8 is coming as soon as well. So right now I don't have day 8 yet. I haven't sent it through, but it will be coming soon. I think it's going to be this evening still or tomorrow at the very last. So let's start with talking about what a pen test is. We're going to define what a pen test really is. We're going to define the types of pen tests that are out there, defining the deliverables, like what do you need to do before a pen test, during a pen test, after a pen test. And then the checklists, are they important? What can you do with a checklist? How should you use them? Should you have a lot of them? All of those things we're going to talk about. So let's first of all define what a pen test is, because I think our skill set, we have a mighty big skill set. We know a lot of things. We can basically mess things up really bad. We can fuck shit up if we want to, but we don't get paid enough. We often don't get paid anything at all. So it's really important that for a pen test, we have to find our own clients, or we have to find somebody who can do it for us. So we can work for a company that's looking for pen testers. But I always say that it pays off to put in the time to find your own clients. A stupid example is for a pen test, I usually charge $100 per hour, but I don't have continuous pen tests. I have pen tests, then I have a couple of weeks of nothing, then I have a pen test again, and all of those things. Like I still get some money in between, but if I worked for a QA engineer like I do right now, then I can consistently get my money, then I don't have to. So I look out too bad. I know that every single day I'm gonna get 450 euros for working that day. So it's all about, do you want to have that security of working for a boss, or do you want to work for yourself? That's really important to think about, and you don't have to have an answer yet, of course, because we're first going to look at everything that is involved in a pen test. But I can tell you that all of the information that you need to start your own pen test is available online. You just have to find your own clients. That's going to be the most important part. Whenever we do get a client, we get assigned a scope, and that scope can be from an IP range. It can be a network. It can be sorry, IP range is network word. It can be a website, a certain website. It can be a top level domain, which we have full access to. So there's a lot of things which we can define as in scope. And it's important to define exactly what is in scope, because we really want to have a clear definition there, so that if push comes to shove, you have a definition. There's no ambiguity in the definition, and you can say, hey, look, we had this agreement, it was in scope or not in scope. The out of scope section, let's say your client uses third-party systems like Google, for example, for their advertisements. Well, we don't want to test Google, of course, so that's going to be in the out of scope section. We are expected to be ethical. That's not always easy, because defining the law, the defining being ethical is a hard thing to do. But I think we can all agree that at least to be ethical is to follow what are our own morals, how we think about life, and how we go about it. It's don't harm other people. That's that's my number one rule. Don't harm others, and if I can help them, even better. But just start with not harming anybody. And then, of course, we have to sign an NDA, because we're usually dealing with sensitive company information. Non-disclosure agreements are just a document in which it is stated that no information will be leaked for both parties, so no information will be leaked on the way that we work, and no information will be leaked on the way that they work. Basically, that's what the NDA is for. We want to protect our customer. That's going to be our number one priority. We're going to have to keep that in mind because when we're hacking, we're going to have to disable things like a firewall. And that's going to be dangerous, of course. Hackers are constantly looking for firewalls that go down. So what we do as black hats, if we find a firewall, at least that's what I do in my bug bounties, I scan that firewall on a regular basis and I see whenever it's down, I'm going to try to attack more. I have this one client that I look at a lot, and they work with a WAF, and that WAF blocks you if you have too much, if you attack too aggressively. So it's always good for me to know when that WAF is disabled. That being said, you know that a pen tester is going to have to disable that firewall as well at some point. So you have to be able to talk to your customer and you have to let them know, hey, this is my traffic. This is how I am going to attack, and you can see that that's me. That way, if other traffic comes in that doesn't meet this criteria and it's an attack, then you have to be very careful and re-enable the firewall as quick as possible. That's something for the blue teaming side, of course, but we still have to contact them and we have to get that firewall enabled as soon as possible, basically. We first of all, whenever we have our assignment, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define our test plan in our pen test, basically, because whenever we have a pen test in front of us, what we want to do is that test plan describes exactly what is going on, how we're going to test, who is going to test, at what times they're going to test, what tools they will be using to test. It will just be describing the scope, so that's very important in a pen test. That test plan takes up a lot of time, and often it is also calculated in the pricing to make a test plan. So if I spend 4 hours making it, then I charge 4 hours extra, of course. And the report, that I don't charge because the report is filling in a template basically. So I don't really charge for that. But you have people who do. It's up to you. It really depends on the company that you work at. What our customers often want is a guarantee that we're covering a certain level of coverage. Now, how do you determine coverage? Because that's really, really hard. Well, there are methodologies like the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide to talk about coverage, NIST as well. NIST even believes that 100% security is achievable, so we will see more about that tomorrow. But what you often will see is the OWASP top 20 as a coverage. And it depends, of course, if you have a web test, if you have a website, then you will often see OWASP top 20. But what I will do is CWE top 25 plus OWASP top 10 plus OWASP API top 10. You know, I will try to go a little bit deeper and add some extra service to my company, to my customers. And that way I want to try to distinguish myself from the crowd, basically, because there are a lot of pen testers out there. And when I'm talking about pen testing, there are a lot of types of pen tests as well, and it's growing. The thing is, if you want to look for a vulnerability, I can teach everybody to hack. I can teach my grandmother to hack, and I'm not kidding. because all you have to do is copy an attack vector, cross-site scripting attack vector, paste it into Google, go through a couple of pages, and you'll see that one of those pages will give you a pop-up where it shouldn't be. That is because Google has an excellent spider, and Google finds all of those things for us. But that's also because like web pen testing, it's something like, I don't know what I was going to say anymore, but what's really important about web pen testing is that it's up and coming. Like, there's a lot of websites out there that are still vulnerable, that still don't believe in the power of a pen test. But I always try to convince them by saying, hey, look, I know I cost a lot of money, but did you know that a data leak will cost you a lot more? And then I actually go through the cost of an actual attack with them, and you will see that it's 6, 7, or even 10 times more than the asking price that I have. Now, the thing is, of course, I have to realize as well that not all companies have unlimited budgets. So, what I always do is I try to sneak into the budget for the coming periods. They might have already spent their budgets on the current period, so I try to sneak it in, but I try to sneak it in a form that I give more to my customer than the average pen tester. I give a report that is repeatable. So I will give a test plan together with a report, which means that developers or the testers can re-execute my testing later on. That way they don't have to keep hiring me, and I can basically insert my knowledge into the company, and they can still hire me for security consulting, of course. And that way, I think it's a lot more challenging and a lot more fun because, of course, once a pen testing methodology has been implemented, it's fun, but I don't want to keep repeating that same methodology, and no company wants that. They often want to reiterate, and you will see as well. Like, we have web pen testing right now, and mobile and API. Those are hot, or at least hotter than the rest. But there's also organizational-wide pen testing, network pen testing, the cloud hybrid infrastructure testing. So that is where you have some servers on premise and some servers in the cloud. And of course, that's configuration, and with configuration comes the possibility for configuration flaws as well. There's also IoT pen testing, Web 3.0, and Metaverse pen testing. Now, those are very new. All we are doing is blowing up smoke and mirrors because I really have no idea what's going on there. And then we have social engineering as well. That's also a possibility. Whenever I try to do an organizational pen test, I often try to include a phishing letter, because like even the person that hired me will often be security wise a little bit better than everybody else, but he will still often miss that because I like to do that. I like to send out false phishing mails, and then when people click on it, they basically land on my server, and I just register, okay, this person clicked on from this IP address, clicked on the link. We have automotive pen testing as well. It's going to be more and more important because you have all of these electric cars popping up, but somebody has to secure those electric cars as well. Then we have a physical pen test. That is one that is least often done, unfortunately, because that is one of my favorites, the physical pen test, which I tried to always just. I have a yellow jacket in my car, you know, the fluid yellow jackets, and one of those hard hats, and I always try to just walk it through the door. And if there's like security, I say, hey, I'm coming to work on room 26 or something like that. You know, I always try to just get in. I have to say, there isn't one time that I haven't been able to. One time I wanted to test my hypothesis, and I went to the zoo in my normal dressing up, with my hard hat, with my yellow jacket, and I said, "Hey, I'm coming to work here on the Monkey's Day," and they opened the gate for me, and I was in with a ladder in my hands. Okay, but that wasn't a huge problem. So yeah, physical pen testing is a really fun topic. Unfortunately, we don't get to do it that often. Now, if we talk about physical pen testing, sorry, network pen testing, we often rely on tools. Now, what we want to do is sometimes we get a VPN connection to the server. Sometimes we get a VPS that is inside the network of the server. But we want to test the network from internally and from externally. Especially with COVID right now, we want to test if all of those things that are making connections to the outside world, if those are safe, and we want to do that from the outside, of course. So with network pen testing, what we're often going to do is we're going to try and get a foothold into a machine by performing things like port scanning, vulnerability scanning, looking at vulnerable version numbers and seeing if you can find a proof of concept for that. But we have to rely on our networking knowledge for this one, and also on tools heavily like Nmap, Nikto, Masscan, OWASP Zap. So it's going to, oh no, sorry, not Zap. That's a different tool. But anyway, network pen testing is heavy, and the thing is, you have to scan the entire network and investigate every single target in and of itself. That's going to take quite some time because you have to look at the open ports, investigate the open port, see what is running on there, and see if something's vulnerable on there. That's the most important thing. We usually don't want to get we want to get a foothold, but we don't want to get a root because often the client doesn't want that. At least in my region, I've noticed that the client doesn't want me having root access to their server. So I try to avoid that at all costs, but I do try to get a foothold to prove that their servers should be more secure. Then we have organizational wide. You will see that it's very similar to network pen testing, but it's more like a multiple network testing kind of deal. So you might have two networks that communicate with each other. You want to be inside of both networks and you want to be outside of them to see traffic and to see what's going on. And this will again require extensive networking knowledge to see how two networks are connected with each other and how the packets travel from one network to a different network. That is a very interesting type of pen test, in my opinion, because you get to do you get to do a lot of theory crafting about what could go wrong, what configurations are. So I like this one. I like the puzzle element that it brings along with it. Then we have the web testing. So why did I say external or internal? I meant internal like an admin interface. You might not be able to access the admin interface, or even the whole website could be something that you can only see from inside their network, the client's network. So you might have to connect with VPN, or you might see that you can access it externally as well. In that case, it's often better to test it externally because that is what the client will be seeing as well. They will not have that VPN connection. So for this, it's really important that we want to get web exploits. There are a lot of them. Cross-site scripting, like you guys already said, SQL injection. But I don't want the sleep SQL injection and I don't want the alert cross-site scripting anymore. I want to have the better versions in the sense that I'm either going to steal cookies or I'm going to steal something on the page or I'm going to try to execute some JavaScript function. So I want to go deeper into those exploits because I think that the resources online are good for this, but especially for cross-site scripting, they could use a little bit of a refresher, let's just call it that. As for API testing, here we have the same problem, internal or external. It really depends how your API is configured and how it is made available. And here it really depends because often you will get things like Swagger documentation, and that's going to be your manual testing. So you will just use that documentation to click around to try and test for IDORs, for example. It's a really useful, that Swagger documentation. But you have to know that not everything has to be in there per se. I mean that they can actually so sorry, I forgot. Doesn't really matter. What I wanted to say is, in this case, we want to exploit logic. So if you have that Swagger documentation, you might want to test for IDOR. It might take a little bit longer. Oh yeah, I was going to say that that Swagger documentation doesn't per se have all of the functions available. That Swagger documentation, the developer says this function should be in the documentation, but if you skip a certain function, well, then we can still exploit that. And of course, that's hard to realize, that's hard to know, but that's what brute forcing is for, if you're allowed to do that, of course. What we don't want to do is we don't want to actually kill a server, because that's something that if you mess around too much, you might actually break the application fully. That's not good, but of course it's the customer's problem because they shouldn't have made the website vulnerable. But what we want to do then is we want to inform them as quick as possible that their website is vulnerable to an application level denial of service attack and that he needs to fix it ASAP. What we also have is shadow API. So a shadow API is basically an API that hasn't been used yet. It's just sitting there in production with no real connection or no real use yet. But in a JavaScript file, you might find the routes for that API. And trying them, you find that they might work and you might find IDORs on those endpoints because they aren't secure yet properly. So API pen testing also a very interesting type of pen testing. There are others, you guys saw that there are other types of pen testing, but I'm not going to go too deep into them because that would take way too much time and we have other stuff that I need to get done. And it's already pretty late, I see. So let's talk a little bit about the deliverables. Are there any questions about previous chapters before I move on?
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Okay, perfect. If anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me. It's not a problem. So the deliverables for a test, for a pen test, consist of a NDA. We already talked a little bit about that. Test plan, test report, notice of engagement, sign-off slip, and test debriefing. The NDA, we talked about that already. That comes from the target, from our customers. They are the ones that make the NDA. Sometimes we can make the NDA as well because the customer might have no idea how an NDA is set up. I just read a couple of MDAs and I set up my own just in case. I've had to use it once, but still, it's useful if you have it. But both parties sign that non-disclosure agreement, but I have to say you really have to read carefully before you sign anything, because what you might be signing is a something that you have to keep silent that is very obscure, like maybe you have to keep the type of unit test secret. It might not be, it's in the NDA. You're not allowed to talk about the unit testing or the types of unit testing that are available there. And what you might do with your mates is you might talk about the type of unit testing, but not in a sense that I did it there, but more in a sense that, hey, right now we're talking about statement coverage instead of branch coverage. So that's something that you might put into your NDA. Be very careful, read, and see that they don't put any funny things in there, because sometimes they might really screw you over with that NDA. And I always assume, especially on the internet, that people are out to get me. I know that's maybe a paranoid attitude, but I think it saved me from some bad clients before. Anyway, that's NDA test plan. That is something that we make. I'm going to look at the test plan much more extensively later on. But this is what is describing your actual engagement. We're going to look at some examples, but something that I definitely want in my test plan is going to be a scope section. What is in scope? What is out scope? I'm going to want a person of or people section, and usually I prefer to be a Rocky matrix. Rocky is you put up a matrix and you tell if somebody is responsible, who is accountable, who you should inform. So I wanted that preferably in my test plan, but that's not always necessary, of course. It's really important that you're able to gauge the size of your pen test, because you're going to sometimes get a pen test that is very big and very long, and sometimes you're going to get a much smaller pen test. Um, this con- this also contains, in my opinion, your scope section, in scope, out of scope. And then you're going to describe again what deliverables are included in the documentation. Just so the client knows what they can expect and what kind of documentation is coming their way. And I always try to describe the project itself a little bit as well. I try to get to know my product very well, and whenever I hack, I usually tend to use my target for a long time before I actually start doing things that are malicious. I do that because I think you cannot hack something if you don't know how it works. And I know that it's a luxury, but I try to take 8 hours where I don't get paid, I don't charge for those 8 hours to explore my application. And then I can start hacking, and then they can start charging me. Or, sorry, I can start charging them. Um, but that's what basically your test plan. We will see some more examples of that. Extremely important document, in my opinion. Then we have a test report. A test report, if anybody finds a bug or vulnerability, then we're going to actually report that, of course. And to report that, we have the steps to reproduce. We have the actual and expected result, a summary, and a CVSS score. Now, I wish that we did that everywhere in my company that we work right now, but bugs are not marked that way. Bugs are just usually a small text. Don't do that to vulnerabilities that you find. Make it into a proper vulnerability report. Not just say, oh, if you open a document and change ID, then you see other people's document. It might be invoice, it might be Lord knows what, maybe it's on the edit page. That's what I mean. It's really important to have that written down pretty well. You don't want the company to have to go and look for your vulnerability again. They just have to go and see, oh, there's a vulnerability, I can go there. Anyway, that's it for the test report. I always add some remediation steps as well. I try to say, hey, if you do this, this, and this, then your company is going to be a lot safer. I always add a recommendation for myself to do a retest after 3 months to see if they still have a vulnerability or a hole open. And of course, I add what I did to clean up after myself. Like if I had to upload a reverse shell, then I'm going to say reverse shell deleted, for example. And then the small conclusion is just a small paragraph saying if the company is secure or not and what kind of coverage does it actually meet. So if it's like the top 10 OWASP top 10, that is one part of it. Does it cover the full OWASP top 10 or is it just 90% or 80%? And the CWE 25 as well. Then of course my notice of engagement, that is a document which you actually give the moment you want to start testing. So if I'm going to start testing tomorrow at 8 a.m., I'm going to send this slip off, this notice of engagement, I'm going to send it off to my customer. And it contains my email and my IP addresses of the attacker. That will be us, not a malicious attacker, of course. Oh, sorry. I went too far there. There we go. This also contains, if we use a VPS, contains that IP address. It contains special headers being used. So let's say I'm attacking. I always want to include a special header, and that special header is going to say something like pen testing or something in that nature. That way the victim or the company can actually see, oh, this header says pen testing. This is traffic that we can ignore for the monitoring and alerting. Because if you're pen testing and their alerting system is still on, it's going to go haywire. And that's why you can add those special headers. They can say if that header is included, disable the firewall rules for that. And this can also happen for monitoring, like I said, on the customer's side. The sign-off slip, this is when everything is delivered and is as expected. If you still have any questions for me, feel free to ask them. Sign-off slips are not required, to be sure, just to be sure, but I want them signed. I really want my sign-off slip signed, because then the customer can no longer come and say, hey, I have a sign-off slip, or I need some extra work done because you haven't completely finished all your work, then I can say, yeah, but I have a sign-up slip. You know, you signed off on my work. You said that was good enough. So extra work, extra money, of course. Then for the debriefing, if you can't do it in person, if you cannot do it via Zoom, then you can still record it. A brief video or audio file even can be enough to still have a meeting. So it's, for me, this debriefing, it's a nice extra. I don't see this often. So that's why I offer it, just a little piece of debriefing. And usually my clients prefer to have it done live. So that's it for the types of pen tests. Then we're going to go for checklists. Now, you guys know me, checklists, I find them extremely important, especially in pen testing, not as much in bug bounties, but especially in pen testing. And we're going to, let me see real quick. Does it want to open? I doubt it. Apparently it doesn't want to open, but that's okay. We can just open it with, so, sorry about that. I could just go to Google Chrome. So I have a checklist that I use for web testing, for example, and it's based on the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide. And then afterwards, I went and looked at other people's pen testing methodologies, and I tried to pick out the best one, the best steps that would fit my methodology, and that's how I'm trying to build it day by day. And every single day, I try to add a little bit, because then after 365 days, I'm gonna have 365 pieces of information added to my notebook, and I see it's a little bit slow in loading, but this is really useful, not because I have to look at every single thing in detail again, but the cool thing about this is that I can look at, oh yeah, I know how to install Android and iOS labs. Okay, let's, I have pages for that. I don't need the full explanation. I have my own explanations. But what I do need is I need to know everything that is out there, like the WAF guide, for example, or the broad scope guide. There we go. Anyway, so this is my Notion book. In my Notion booklet, I have a pen testing section. And in here, this pen testing, I have a checklist for enumeration slash techniques. And let's see. All right, so sorry about that. I was thinking for a little while. So these are my enumeration techniques for HTTP, SMB, FTP. So these are my network enumeration techniques. But I have to say these are not something I use a lot. What I use for this is my OneNote, because I did that during my OSCP. And my OneNote, I just keep it up to date. I'm not gonna open it right now because my computer seems to already be struggling. But for example, this is my web hacking checklist, and what I've done is I've looked at those checklists that I've talked about, and then I'm going to look at every single step in deeper detail. Like this, for example, the search engine investigation. I'm going to have a look. Oh, right. What am I looking for here? Subdomain enumeration. Look for files, looking for backup files. Really useful to just have a list of search engines again if I ever need them. Or if I need the dorks, I have them as well. So this is all super useful stuff. Um, I don't know if you guys, well, let's see, what is the pen test tools? Yeah, this one. So I will send this link in the chat. What we can do here is we can look for example, expert.com. We won't find anything. But we can look for publicly exposed documents, for example, and it's going to set up a Google Doc for us, and we don't have to do anything. How cool is that? We can look for all of these things. Sign up pages. Let's search for Google. Nothing, of course. And you can put in any website here that you want. So I will put that in the chat in the extra resources. I saw some questions in here. At the end of the class, can you explain how to approach OSCP exam or any cert of equal value? Oh yeah, for sure. Feel free to remind me if I forget, of course. How are you setting the VPS in the client's network? So I basically asked them to set them up for me. I asked them, hey, can you set me up a VPS that I can use, that I can actually, just connect to via VPN through your network. Then I'm going to look at that VPS that way. I'm not the one installing it, of course, because I don't have power over their network yet. And get me anything that VPS. Like for me, I'm happy if it's a Docker instance with the container that I tell them to set up. And then I can connect to it over VPN. So I hope that answers your question, my friend. Let's talk about checklists because you guys saw my checklist already a little bit, and I think these are extremely important. They are going to help you because you're human, you're going to forget things. That's normal, it's normal for everybody, but you can prevent that by creating checklists. And I know it's hard and tedious work, and you have to update your checklists constantly. But it's so important and it can help so much because if you have to say to the client what coverage of pen testing they have, you can very easily present, hey, these are the checklists that I've done, this is what I've tested, and these are the vulnerabilities that came out of it. Basically, a checklist is a piece of living documentation that is shared across your complete company because everybody is going to have to test the same way a little bit. Of course, you get room for exploratory testing, but you have to adapt to the way that your company is testing as well, unless you start your own company, of course. But even then, you have to get used to that way of testing. Pen testing checklists, deliverable checklists, logging checklists. It doesn't really matter what kind of checklist that you're testing right here. A checklist is a checklist, and it can help you quite a lot. If, for example, if I have software and I have to release it from my testing to my staging environment and from staging to production, and there's always a checklist that you have to go through to actually deploy that item. So those checklists really, really useful, but you will have to create your own at first. That's not that hard because OWASP has a really cool web security testing guide. So if I look here, OWASP web security testing guide. There we go. All right, so as you can see right here under topic 4, web application security testing, you can find quite a lot of things in here. So this is something that you can definitely use as a beginning of a checklist for yourself. And the thing is, like, they always tell you how to test for it as well. Like testing WebSockets. It's say test the origin, test the confidentiality and integrity, do input sanitization, and black box testing is what they explain. So checklists, super, super important. Make sure that you have your own checklists, or at least start to create your own checklists. And these guys, they're testing for a web shop. All right. So let's go to the next part, shall we? I'm thinking maybe it's important that we look at a test plan example first. So this is a test plan example that I found online. Sorry about that. You guys should have that in your course material as well. And in here you can find the goals of the document, the target audience, the project description, the glossary, testing objectives, scroll, roles and responsibilities, methodologies, scope testing, so features to be tested in scope. Let's see. So the test completion criteria. What that basically means is we have a entry criteria and an exit criteria. So when our testing is going to be done, we have to define what it means to be done. Because of course you can keep on testing and you can keep on trying to find bugs, but at a certain moment you're going to have to say done. So test completion criteria might even be as simple as we time boxed our pen test into a week. Then you have a test strategy as well. A test strategy, you're going to say how you're going to work. And for a normal pen tester, the way of working is you're going to analyze, then you're going to design, you're going to execute. The moment you find a foothold, you're going to try to exploit, and cycle repeats basically. But it's described in the web security testing guide. So if you're interested in that, we will look at that later on. Then the test results, I wouldn't put that in my test plan. I would put that in a separate document, but that's all up to them, of course. And the tool set that they've used together with a list of deliverables. This is also important, in my opinion, the revision history, because you want to know, okay, how long has this document been floating around, who's been working on it, what version are we on in the meantime, all those things are important. Not super important, but if there's ever any discussions, then that is going to be an easy way to find out certain things. Now, the glossary, as always, you have a project description. Here they say this test plan is designed to describe the approach, organize and implement the testing process, and define the deliverables. So that's something they will also do. The target audience, you basically say who that document is for, who can read it. Sometimes you might also see that there are exclusions here, like this person are not allowed to read this document or something like that. It's already too late because it's inside of the document, of course, but it can happen that some information is very confidential, and especially in the military, you have a lot of confidential information there. Then we have project description, basically telling you what the project itself does. So if I have a web shop, for example, I'm going to describe how my web shop works. Then I have a glossary, and that is going to be your words that are hard to guess, and you're going to explain them a little bit. Testing objectives, basically, we want to say what we want to test. So what we want to test for, identify security threats, validate them, eliminate the impact of security issues, and guarantee that the project will not function will function correctly under malicious attacks. Then they have the roles and responsibilities as well. So really useful. I love that they do that. And the methodology, which they take their time for to write it out, because as you can see, they're going to test for several things as well. Like right now, an application has 3 vulnerabilities. Component makes you glitched. And then client-side testing, exposed design vulnerabilities, and exposed implementation. vulnerabilities. Ooh, that's a whole sandwich. Then we're going to go into scope. And the scope is very easy. Of course, you guys know what scope is, what I can test and what I cannot test. Assumptions that I'm making for test execution. So I have to assume that I have a VPN connection, that the server is working correctly, that smoke tests have been done. I can put in here whatever I wish. And this is basically whenever the testing is done, is whenever these criteria are met. So you don't have to have 100% pass condition, for example. You can still have like 97 or 98% pass condition. Let's see. The test completion criteria also important in case all conditions that are indicated below are performed by testing support to be finished. Let's see. So all test cases planned for current build have been run. Basically describing when our tickets go to UAT, I think. All the found defects have been posted to the bug tracking system and test result report has been pretty. Yeah, I knew that. Anyway, testing strategy. That's also something that's important. Like we said before, we're going to basically document how we're going to test and in what phase we're going to execute what type of attack. Now, these guys describe it extremely detailed. You really don't have to put it up that detailed. Of course, feel free to, but it's not necessary in my opinion, at least not for the companies that I am pen testing. Maybe for your phase it is. Sorry about that. Um, so the toolset appendix A, they also have an appendix here, and then a list of deliverables. Those deliverables are very interesting to me. Let's open them up real quick. Need that copy anymore. And let's open this one. This one we already talked about. I need this one. Perfect. So let's run the slides. All right. So let's see. We shall start with the slideshow for the pentesting deliverables. Sorry if I space out for a second. That is because of my medication. Let's see. So NDAs, we talked about that. NDAs have to be signed. They really have to be. It's super important that you sign those, because if you don't and there is a problem or a conflict, then you might be accused of something that you didn't even do. So make sure that they're signed. Test plans, we already went over that a little bit, but we will also go much deeper again. And then a notice of engagement, that is that sign-off letter, that letter from, hey, we're going to start from these IP addresses with these MAC addresses, or from a VPS or something like that. And then we have a report and a debriefing as well. So the NDAs, we already talked about those extensively. I'm not going to go too much into detail anymore here. Test plans. Test plans are very important, like I said. It's basically your preparation for your testing. And if you have your test planning created really well, for me, I do 70% preparation and 30% execution. And that's all possible because I do 70% preparation. I try to prepare as much as possible. And I do that in every single aspect of my life. Like for my courses, I try to prepare as much material as possible. And then I wait until my wife goes to bed, and then I start recording like a maniac, and I will do it a lot faster than if I still had to prepare everything, of course. This also ensures that proper coverage is met, that the client is happy with the coverage level. And it also ensures that the customer can easily identify those coverage levels. They also have to see what is covered by the test plan and what is not covered by the test plan. At least if that is the client's wish, our client that is. This is also going to be readable by your tech leads, also managers. So that means that your test plan has to be understandable by a manager. That's not an easy task. I'm just warning you already. And so create a really solid test plan. And then later on, if you want, you can still change it a little bit. But try to put as much information in it as possible from the start. And then later on, you can go from there. This is sort of a checklist for my testers. So, what do I mean by that? Once I look at the test plan, I already know what I have to do. And so that is kind of my checklist. And since I have my methodology in my test plan always, so I always put all of my test cases that I'm going to execute in my test plan. It's a little bit of fluff, but it also helps the people identify test plans. And then, of course, all of those checklists that I use, I keep them well in my Notion, in my OneNote. Um, I I should bring them together sometime. But checklists, they are very, very important in pen testing, especially. They're going to help you quite a lot. The notice of engagement, we already talked about that as well. We will say this IP address or these IP addresses will attack from this time frame onto this time frame. And that's usually done because logging is disabled at that moment or firewall is disabled. And what you want to do then is, of course, say like say for example I'm testing from Sunday 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Then you really want to be done by 11 p.m. And if you're still sending out traffic, you still have to send out an email asking for longer, asking for more time basically. But you also have to remember that you're charging a customer per hour sometimes. So some extra time, it might not be something that they want. It's extra call that you have to make. It takes time. Anyway, those notice of engagements, they are important because a company has a lot of logging if everything is okay. They also have logging and monitoring and alerting. So they, whenever attacks come in, their system is going to go haywire. And that's something that we want to avoid. So they just shut off the system or they do something else to it to allow my traffic to go forward. This is important to mention all of the computers that you're using. So if you have, I have like a Windows computer and a Mac computer and an iMac and a MacBook Air. I will give all of those MAC addresses to my client. And they will basically come from this IP address right here. So I will send this IP address, these MAC addresses, and then of course you can include the network from which you will attack if that's something that is of relevance, if that's important. And you might run automated tests, so that might also be optional to put in there that the automated test is going to run from Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that. When it comes to reporting, I think it's very important because they always say no pay, no proof, no proof, no pay, or POC or GTFO. I completely understand why now. But what we really want to do is we can test all we want, but we need to prove things somehow as well. We need to prove that there's a vulnerability. So the report is filled with what worked, but also what did not work. I put the things in there that I've tested that gave me an error result. And I did that because, like, for the reporting, it's really important to, uh, like I said, give my customer reusability so they can go over my test plan again and they can test everything that I've tested and not just what gave them a vulnerability. So I try to put everything in there, also things that didn't work. And then I will try to titles of issues need to be short and to the point. That's really relevant because your issues, your vulnerabilities are going to get talked about in a meeting room, and it's going to be 10 people, 15 people, maybe managers even, and you might find an issue that you think is blocking. But if the text is really long, if the title is extremely long, it might give some adverse effects where you're getting less time than you actually need. So make your titles really short, then they can talk about it in a boardroom really easily. They are more inclined to talk about those short titles because it's just easier to pronounce. And you need to be gone. Sorry, you need to go over your board room for manager. Sorry, that's what I was saying. In those boardrooms, managers are going to talk about these vulnerabilities, and it's really important that they understand what's going on as well. One time I tried to teach a manager of a big construction company cross-site scripting. That was frustrating. You need to have enough detail though to easily reproduce your bug. So if you found a bug, then it's really important that you actually find a. So you have a bug, then you need to reproduce it as well. Sorry. Um, my father-in-law is bleeding a little bit, so um, I heard him yelling. Anyway, so reporting not only vulnerabilities, I want a summary as well. I want to know exactly what happened in human language, not in computer language. So I want a vulnerability, a list of vulnerabilities. I want to have a vulnerabilities with where you actually write everything down in your report. And I want a list of vulnerabilities where you just go over them, like a small list that says this vulnerability, this title, with this TVSS score, and maybe fixed or not fixed. So that is something that I would put in there. I would put a description of all of my vulnerabilities in there properly. Like I said, steps to reproduce, expected result, actual result. Those are things that I would definitely put in there. And then, of course, I want to do it on a lower level as well. Like I want to say maybe unit testing needs to be upped. Maybe it needs to reach a certain statement coverage level. But I also want to do it on a high level where I say, okay, the vulnerabilities that were found were either critical or not critical. And then I tell them a little bit about the vulnerabilities and I tell them about how to fix it. But I say, like, for example, cross-site scripting leading to account takeover. I just tell them that we've been able to take over other people's accounts without interaction. That's a big vulnerability, of course, and that's something that they get as well. So that is basically it for reporting. Oh no, this just one more slide, I think. So here you can see the things that I would put in a report. Now I would personally, I don't know, for me, you really, it's important that you put this information into your vulnerabilities. Why is this important? Because you want the triager or the person that is going to read your report to be able to read it fast and to be able to find and reproduce your vulnerability fast. That's why I think it's super important to actually look for especially steps to reproduce, actual result, and expected result. Oh, so that's about it. So these things I would definitely take with me whenever I am doing a pen test and a reporting. Um, I would give it a score as well, but I'm not per se giving it a CVSS score. Depends on what my customer wants. And I can normally give it a medium, a low vulnerability, a critical vulnerability. So that's how I usually make my scores. You can do it however you want, of course. Then the recommended fix, that's an it's an MVP. It's not an MVP item. For MVPs, I would definitely take a title, a small summary, a step to reproduce, actual result, expected result, and CVSS score. So let's start debriefing. Of course, after our report, we also have to debrief. Not every company does that. Not every fantastic company does it. I haven't heard a lot of companies do this yet. Basically, this is a little bit extra for the client. For me, that's what I like to do. I like to give them better service than other people. This is my way of doing it. A video file, audio file, Zoom meeting that is going to detail my findings on a higher level scale. Maximum 10 minutes, no longer than that. So that's your debriefing. Of course, when the time comes, you will talk about that more and you will have some more experience with your debriefing. But for now, what I would like to do, since we're nearing midnight, is I'm going to set up an assignment for you guys. And you can go into your Teams chats, and in here, let's describe the deliverables. So go to your team chats, open a Google document, a Google Docs document, and someone for the team start typing in there. So invite each other, open a Google document, invite each other, and then somebody from the team can start typing in that Google document. I'm going to go around in groups and see how it's going there. If you need me, feel free to message me. Let's see. David. Guys, feel free to come into the team chats, of course. So we have team one. They can go into the team one voice chat. Excellent. And then we can have a little bit of a look. Team two as well. Go into your voice chat, and we can see how far you will get. Excellent. Hey, how are you doing? Is anybody up for sharing their screen? And maybe somebody making Google document already. You can use your chats as well, of course, for this. Perfect. Team 3 has a Google Docs. Excellent. Now, if only we can get one.
Does anybody here want to do the typing and sharing your screen?
That would be awesome if anybody would like that. No.
No one. Everyone's muted right
Yeah.
now. It's.
I don't know if you guys know, but you guys are muted. Hey, Mr. Rodent. Now we can hear you.
There we go. That's good.
I'm creating the Google document and I'm sharing it.
I think someone said they're opening up a document. I didn't quite fully catch it, but I think that's what someone just said.
I am creating the Google document
Oh, perfect.
and I'll
Okay.
share it.
So does anybody want to share their screen?
One I didn't catch who was speaking, but I think it's Novacek or Down a Blue Devil
No,
is making.
It was XSS
Me,
rodent.
actually, Rodent.
Oh, okay. XS Rodent is making the document right now. Said.
Perfect. So good luck, guys. I'm gonna check the other teams and I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's
purposes and of my clients is heavily involved in Alien Vault. He is one of bigger companies in Croatia that is using Alien Vault.
yeah, it's I work support for anyone.
Nice.
I put the link in the chat. Do you see on the top where it says Team 2?
Okay, let me see.
It's really awesome that you work on animal rescue. I really like that. Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
So you guys also have a Google document, right? You put that in the chat room, I think, right?
Yes, Mike just opened the Google Docs.
Perfect. If this stays like this, where the groups where you only have 2 group members that are here, I'm gonna switch the groups around a little bit, of course. So annoying.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
See, I'm going to check on the other teams for a second. I will be right back.
All right. Yeah, so for Alien Vault, I see, they have really cool teams for like
So, Rat, are you there?
Yep.
Hey,
Hello.
Rat, if so we're making a test plan or focusing on deliverables for this.
Just describing the deliverables. So, what is the test plan? What is the NDA? Like we need the NDA
Gotcha.
like before and after the test. Oh no, it's not that assignment.
That's the one you put up.
No, it's the one in the if you go in the course material page on the course materials in Discord is the
The
assignment.
deliverables of pen testing?
Yeah.
Is that not what?
That's the one exactly.
Okay. So I'm opening it up right now. Which I'm trying
What
to.
about
Windows cannot complete the
what about
extraction. I can't open it for some reason now.
Really?
you have to download a extractor like the 7-zip or
No, like I have the file. Okay, now it's allowing me to open it in. It just for some reason wasn't opening PowerPoint on my end.
It's a weekend for everybody. Although it's already Monday over here, so let's see.
Isn't the assignment the one that you just posted today
Yep, exactly.
about the deliverables
Yep,
before we start and deliverables after the test?
yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
I see. I wonder what happened to Team 4.
They're
Team,
still in the original chat room. They
yeah,
haven't left.
they're typing with each other, apparently. Hey guys, just so you know, the assignment is the one that I posted today in the chat, right? So I'm going to post it again in this team chat. So that's the assignment.
That's great.
Thanks, Ryan.
My pleasure.
Yes, I should. So,
Right?
That would be the first thing. And then we have to have a test plan. And then we have to have a notice of engagement. And then we have to have whatever then the report and then debriefing. It's actually like the third slide, I think. Third slide.
Perfect.
Or
The
second slide.
Yeah, the report and the debrief. Wouldn't the report and debriefing be the deliverables that we provide after the test?
Yes, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So the NDA, the test plan, the notice of engagement would be what we have to provide, have to have done and accomplished, not just from ourselves, but from the entity or the company or whatever the right wording is that we are working for. That'd be what we need before we start the engagement. Oh, what happened with boss?
so let's make a diagram. So what we have to do, a rough diagram. So before it is NDA,
So yes, we
Right.
need signed NDA.
Signed NDAs.
We have to have
okay,
a
I can say signed, okay, and then test plan
test plan.
and
Notice of engagement.
Right. That's what we need before. So then after, we need a report and the debriefing.
I also need a sign off.
before.
When we're
Yes,
done, we
that
need a
is our-
sign off.
Yes. So we are now at after. So
Right, we need a sign off. We
Are
need
we-
them to agree that
sign off?
it's done, so it's sign off. Sign off.
All right. Yeah. Confirmation or consent of confirmation of completion or sign off of completion.
that is yes. Okay.
That would be a before
off.
though, Or sorry, that would be a sign up
No.
after, yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That
yeah.
will be afterward. And then,
And
we
then
should give a report
report. And then the
and
debrief.
at the yes, the debrief. Okay, so we have to briefly define all those, or only name them.
Just a small explanation of what they are. Like NDA is to keep secrecy for secret documents or something like that. You know.
And that we won't leak anything is the point.
Yep.
And likewise, they won't leak anything about what we may have used in our process. I would like to believe that that would be important too.
Absolutely. It goes both ways, those NDAs. So
Exactly.
it offers.
We need to protect them, and they need to protect us.
Yep, exactly. Because like in this world, it's very cutthroat. Like you will have companies that behave and that are fun to work with, and then you have competition which is very consuming of everything, and they're like they want every client for themselves. All right, let's see. I'm going to check briefly in the other teams, and I think we're almost done. How's it going here, guys? Sorry, I don't understand you. Mr. MG, can you please mute yourself? You are very loud. Thank you. So, how is it going here? Do you guys make any progress?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So, is everything okay here, guys?
Red. One quick question. So, could you a little bit explain us in detail what do you expect from us? So, I believe you expect us to devise some kind of a fantastic plan in this Google Doc. Is this correct?
Not yet. Right now, I just want you to describe what deliverables need to be executed. Like, we need a test before we start testing. We need a test plan, an NDA, and a notice of when we are going to test. So it's like that. I just want you to tell me what documents that I need.
Or what documents do you need prior to the pen testing engagement?
Yeah, and after as well.
Okay.
That's a better way to describe it. I'm going to change my PowerPoint. Perfect. So your recordings will be available tomorrow. Whenever the bootcamp is finished, I'm going to throw the recordings online. Perfect.
Recording of your talk.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to record everything, and then you can skip the parts that are not interesting.
Okay.
I might cut out the non-interesting parts as well. Still thinking about it.
Okay, so we got a list of documents that Mike put in the Google Doc. So basically, we are going to discuss all of the documents, or how are we going to proceed?
Exactly. I think everybody's done now, so I'm going to call everybody back to the general chat. I'll see you in a bit.
All right, thanks.
And it's
think our amazing leader just needed a cheese break. I'm sure he'll be back shortly. Wesley, if you are there, we can't hear you, just so you know.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
I mean, maybe having some technical issues is possible, but in the meantime, why don't you guys share what you've done per section? Is there anybody? Let's see. Yeah. All right. So team one. Somebody like to share a little bit?
Yeah, the excess rodent can pull up a visual, and so what? But I mean, if you want, or I can even pull it up because I've got it on my screen if you want prefer that.
You can even just let us know your process, let us know what you wrote and what you found.
Sure. So we wrote down was we had before and after is the two main headings. So then, so for NDA, we had signed. We put down a non-disclosure agreement is an agreement that ensures security of client and pen tester regarding. Well, just basically that's really nothing else. After that point, it's good. Test plan. We put plan of attack is a plan in a checklist form that takes into consideration methods, look for vulnerabilities and weaknesses, but not allow any damage to the systems involved. Notice of engagement. The timeline of the engagement attacks and the information the client needs to identify the pen testing and testers. Now, for going to the after category, so sign off of completion, tells the pen test is finished and all deliverables are delivered. Report is a summary of what worked and what didn't work in the pen test. And a debrief is a short meeting to tell the client about what has been found. Now, just to point out, I mean, he said only his are only about 10 minutes, but I'd be amazed if you could get away with the debrief that was only 10 minutes. But who knows? Maybe it's possible. But that's the results of our assignment.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I mean, and it's to kind of emphasize the importance of, it's all about, you don't have to be a pen tester. If you've worked in tech at all for any amount of years, especially doing consulting, you know the importance of knowing your audience. So, things like the briefing or even, the executive summary, those things that, each section is sort of catering to a different part. Executive summary, really focusing on things like, keeping it more for the executives, the non-technical staff, and the debriefing might be for them as well. I'm sure they'll have technical staff in that meeting, but it'll really depend on the situation on how detailed, you need to be in those sections. Nice work, really awesome.
Yeah, I was just thinking of my experiences, the why that not necessarily sure a 10 minute would be enough, but I mean, who knows? I mean, that's just a difference of professions from from going from one profession to this one. You know what I mean? Like it's so each one will have different expectations and results for these types of meetings too.
Exactly, and some of these materials here, a lot of it has to do with this stuff is kind of a template, right? So, not all of these, like you said, it's not going to be 10 minutes necessarily, or it could be. So, definitely all of you, take these materials and go forth and make them your own. Really, you'll have to adapt to different kinds of situations with different clients. Again, perfect, excellent. Let's see. We have team two. If you like to share, you can share via text or voice.
Mike, can you please share the screen?
I can tell you what I have. So,
Or describe, yes.
yeah, so we wrote down almost the same thing, for before the engagement, you need the NDA, the test plan, for the test plan, then you need the revision history, target audience, project description, testing objectives, roles and responsibilities. Lastly, you need the letter of engagement. And after the engagement, the report, the briefing, and the sign off. And that's it. We basically have like the template for the before and after.
Absolutely. Can you guys just so we can dive deeper? Not that you did perfect here, but just maybe for the benefit of anybody else. Do you have any thoughts on why the NDA is so critically important, and what kind of effects it can have if that isn't present?
Well, for first, it gives you some coverage behind the law. If something bad happens, I mean, you always must have some non-disclosure agreement between you and the client. So to cover up all the legalese that necessarily must go into every report, because it is obviously a sensitive topic.
Absolutely. And a lot of times specifically, it's about, when you're doing these engagements, and this, again, this is not necessarily specific to pen testing, it's also in the larger IT contracting community is, um, you're dealing with people's most sensitive information. Everything that you're gonna find, everything you're gonna see and touch could be, um, really, really sensitive, personally, identifiable information. It could be patient info. It could be, social security numbers. It could be a lot of things that company holds near and dear. You know, the most valuable assets they have. So, it's really to make sure that legally they know that if you're poking around on their system, you don't go and start letting other people know what's in there. And it's usually mutual also, is that you're protecting your own processes and any kind of special information that you give to the client as well. So yeah, excellent.
It makes
It's
you
essentially a contract of
accountable.
protection.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It makes you accountable front of the law, so you can be responsible if anything leaks from this report from your side.
And
Yeah, it's a contract of protection is really what it is for both sides.
here in the U.S., we have things like HIPAA laws, specifically for medical protection of medical records and things like that. It's taken very, very seriously. There's some real public examples where, like a surgeon, there was a surgeon who surgeon was essentially in an area where there was a lot of famous celebrities, and he would do work on those celebrities, and he ended up talking about it to somebody else. That's all he did. Talking about what what he did, and it ended up he got actual, I think, jail time on top of a massive fine. So it's so easy to have a load in your face. But again, thank you. I think let's move on to team 3. And again, if nobody wants to speak or is able to, or Mike, feel free to speak in general chat.
Hey, how's it going, Icon 5?
Yeah. There you
Oh, sorry. Cool. I'm just going to speak for Team 3. Our NDA definition is a non-disclosure agreement. So this is before the engagement. Companies asked to sign these to protect both themselves and us. Companies do not want non-public data exposed. What conditions NDA is going to break, and what criteria NDA could break from either of the parties. Our test plan includes the scope, like what is in the scope, what is out of the scope, any sensitive machines on the network, for examples of hospitals, if you have certain machines that are keeping patients alive. We also have the matrix, which should be accountable, informed, responsible, and consulted. The next portion was the notice of engagement. Notify the client about time of engagement. We would specify the amount of time we were going to work prior to the engagement, the IPs we were going to use, headers so we can monitor the logs on his side. If we will need extra time, we need to request permission from the client. Includes information of all the devices we'll be using for the pen test and attackers, and what are we going to attack. Project description is next, and what are we testing, methodology, how many testers, time box, type of the pen test, like white box, black box, etc. and what tools of the trade are we going to be using in this test. We also have our entry exit criteria such as login data, VPN access, web application firewalls, all that good stuff. So then after the engagement, we have our test report. Proof of what has been done during the pen test. It includes what worked and what did not work, the summary of all vulnerabilities, including steps to reproduce those vulnerabilities, the soft check of the entire pen test, all of the CDSS scores, recommended steps for remediation and cleaning up up after ourselves, so no traces, backdoors in the systems. The next step in the after the pen test and sign off slip, which confirms everything that has been delivered as expected and should be signed by both the customer and the pen tester. And then debriefing is meeting with the company to discuss what pen test went and clarity that needs to be cleared off by the pen test, providing full documentation of the product of the process using images, video and audio a max of 10 minutes as an extra for the client. And then debriefing for management, security staff, devs, who's relevant and who's not. And that's everything we had from Team 3.
Very nice. Very, very thorough. You guys are all really doing excellent work. What was said? The I think at least one of the things I find most difficult to do is, sometimes rating the vulnerabilities is just something that it kind of amazed me that different methodologies and different pen testers will actually rate certain things different severities. And, part of it really has to do with likeliness that will occur, the business impact for that particular business. A vulnerability that, on a or some sort of bug bounty program could be considered a very low one. That specific company, it might be a very high vulnerability or risk. So, as you guys make these things and as you examine them, you really have to personalize it to the business that you're working with. Look at their business process, look at what their business goals are and their objectives, and see how what you found would impact that, that supply chain, uh, how it's managed, their policies, their day-to-day life there. So that's, yeah, excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Team 4.
Can you hear me?
Again.
Yeah, and our group, our team have made some testing plan according to the sample, such as document goals and some testing objective and methodologies, and as well as some scope of testing. And we are working on the details now, but we have some outline that we intended to finish that plan so that is complete.
You may have dropped off there at the end. I'm sorry. We may have missed the last thing we said.
Yeah, we have made a template of the test plan according to the sample and the presentation that given before. Before, and we are just filling in the details now. And you may present it after the details are filled in. I think.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Great. And I'd rather, we'd rather obviously if we complete, than shove it into a small period of time, because it's something that you can use after the class. Take it and have it as your own thing. I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of if he's doing all right. See if he's back up in action. But excellent work so far, and if not, we'll go from there. So give me a few minutes, and we'll see what's going on. If you're able to, in the meantime, if there's anything you want to collaborate and add to those documents, then definitely this would be the perfect time to do so. Again, you're building a template that you can use in the future, so it's not just for this assignment.
Yeah, once Itons, whatever, I don't know how he pronounces it, but once he gives back to us, maybe if need be, that maybe someone who's a bit more versed in this can, I mean, or even I could just read what the headers are. But I mean, it'd be better if we had someone who actually understood some of these things, just in case need be, or who knows, maybe who will get just some time tacked on to another class, just to go over the stuff that we may have not had the chance to go over to tonight with Wesley there.
Yeah, if I for some reason can't, I mean, you did mention very briefly in the video before, but maybe something was bothering them.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. Yeah, like something about something his father-in-law sounded upset.
Excuse me, if you hear some background, but the dog just refuses to get a drink and the barking and all that stuff. So strange noises, that's what it is. Yeah, then you know what? Let's actually move on. I'm just going to go according to the syllabus here. And you know, since obviously I'm not going to be have a large amount prepared, we can just start going, you know, go through this. Because you all are here.
I'm even willing to read what's on the slides, but it just I'm fully going to admit that I really doubt that I would be able to do more than read the slides. I mean, maybe I could, but I'd rather be honest and say that I shouldn't.
I can add some value to it. A grade anyway.
It is pretty late for him.
Yes, it is. So, all right, there was a break coming up. Let's, instead of waiting for that break, let's take a 10-minute break now. Whatever time it is there. And in fact, 10 minutes, and we're going to go through the rest.
Actually, can we maybe make it 15? Because one of the fellows, I didn't catch who it was. I think it was Tormind. No, the XSS rodent. He said he needed 15 minutes because of prayer break.
Let's do it. 15 minutes. We'll get back here.
But whoever just came back on, if you didn't know, we're on just about 5 minutes away from finishing up a break that we decided to take just while we are waiting to find out what's going on with Wesley.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get a hold of him. If that is him, you know, for a second, but he's on heavy medication for pain, so I'm just hoping he's all right.
Well, and I was kind of wondering about that too, because he did talk about the medication, why he kind of lapsed there, at least the one time, anyways.
Not feeling well again, you know. Fibromyalgia kicks his ass, so but we'll see. Again, if in a few minutes we're gonna go through the rest of the slides for the evening anyway. We only have a few more. We'll talk about things like revision history and you know why that's important and things like that. So again, I'll give it a few minutes and we'll meet you back here.
Yeah, like I said, if you want, I'm not afraid to read them. I'm not like, but I don't feel comfortable going into any sort of elaboration. I don't think I'm at that point yet where like people like you who sound like you've got lots more experience would have that ability to elaborate further.
I have enough that I can get us through the rest of it. I have no doubt that you know no matter what's happened, I know that you know no doubt Rat will make good luck. You guys some extra time on the next classes and things. So I wouldn't worry about that. But I definitely do want to get through some of these other ones and discuss them so that you know the next class, you know.
Right. No, I'm just saying I'm willing to help. That's all.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm gonna pretty much open up a lot of this to discussion. So it's going to be hammering some of the important stuff. I want to hear from all of you what you think, but kind of draw out some more about what could be important, why they're necessary, what you would do. Go from there. Another 2 minutes by my count.
Actually, considering there's only one person who had not had their mic off, I think Wesley fell asleep. I just heard some snoring.
Yeah, I mean, like I
But
said,
I think the medication.
it could be.
I'm not trying to be mean. I just think that that's what happened.
Yeah, no, I know you're. It's definitely possible. It's it's a rough disease, man.
Okay, whoever Majesty is, he's hurt because I've been kind of in and out of the room and looking at stuff for different things, and I am quickly going upstairs and saying hi to checking in on my wife and daughter. But Novichok, if I'm pronouncing how he intended to pronounce it right, said that he's been hearing snoring for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Then and besides, I think we're due for time anyway. So let's actually jump right in. So is everybody? First of all,
Is everybody back?
yeah, exit this road and just let us know if you're back. I want to make sure you're here.
Oh, right, because that was the fellow who needed 15 minutes for prayer.
Yeah, I just want
Prayer break. So do you want me to read it and then you elaborate and then and open it up kind of thing, or?
If you'd like to, we're going to start with revision history. Slide 1, 2, but
Oh, whoops! So maybe I'm in the wrong one then. I was in the test plan. I thought that was the next document.
So I think we kind of touched on that with what we just did, right? 'Cause we did that.
Right. That makes sense.
But we can dive into
Well, he did say he was going to do that, and that's why I opened up that one next. Because we just did number 2, the deliverables of pen testing.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna be really tight on time because there's something really important at the end here. So we're gonna start by, and yes, if you want to read it, we're gonna start now.
Sure.
I definitely want to get to the last part of this lesson.
So let's so go to test plans, and I'll share my screen here. If I able to, as soon as I find it. Apparently, I have too much. Oh, there we go. I have too much stuff. Oh, that's not the test plan I wanted to share. I wanted the documents.
Yeah. So while you're pulling that up, you guys in the chat, in the general chat, want to list some things that you think should go into a test plan. You know, it's a large cauldron of soup. What needs to be in there to make it effective and make it meaningful to the client?
Someone just said target audience. Help this guy.
Especially for the overall report. Yeah. Yep, methodology, exactly, which is going to be the next slide.
Let's opening it properly.
Project description, absolutely. Tools, yeah. It's actually kind of one that a lot of people forget is really sort of in your test plan list what tools you're going to use. Strategy, absolutely. Testing objectives. Let me share a link with you guys too. I know it's coming up. I think it's going to be in the next lesson. Maybe meeting tomorrow, but. 1 second, let me grab the site here. It's a really nice link.
I don't think it's for sharing properly on mine, so I'm gonna have to bow out on this one, I guess.
That's all right. We're gonna power through this. So here's a nice link to some of the top penetration methodologies here. I'm gonna put it in. Here we go. So again, I know that Leslie's going to go into this in a lot more detail of some of these, but OSS, PMM, OWASP, NIST, PTAS, ISSAF, these are all different pen test methodologies. I remember starting into InfoSec, knowing nothing. One of the most daunting things was the question of, hey, if I'm going to do this, how do all these other pen testers just know the structure? They know exactly what to test. Not just on the technical level, but how do they know the framework to use? These methodologies are really key in helping you form your own way of doing things based on these frameworks. They really go in depth. I encourage you to look into them before the next lesson to kind of go over those. But I won't.
I just applied with those guys this week.
What's that?
I applied with Viewmetric. Didn't get the job, but I applied with them at least last week.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? It's there will be many other big and good fish out there, but they have a great little site for this anyway. And so these are great answers, guys.
about it so far. Anything else that you can think of that would go in the test plan? I want to dive in a little bit deeper on scope. So, as you know, scope is like one of the most important things that needs to be so well defined in here. You need to know exactly what is in scope, meaning what you need to test, what you're going to test, and what is specifically out of scope. From an IT perspective, there's going to be some companies, there's going to be those really delicate servers, and they're going to say, hey, if that server was to go down at any point in the day, it would greatly impact our business. That's going to be definitely out of scope. Really sensitive things that, because, as you know, if you ran any of these tools that we're discussing or any of these strategies, sometimes machines don't react as they should. Like a decade ago, I ran Nmap for the first time on one of the IT networks that I was managing, with permission and everything. And, Nmap, in all of its wonderful glory, usually it's just fine, but it made all of the printers in the office just repeatedly spit out endless amounts of paper. So, again, that's a mild example, but you just don't know what's going to happen. So you need the protections in place in the plan and make sure the scope is well defined. For the love of God, if you define anything, the scope, it needs to be one of the most important things. See, we have the notice of engagement. We have the report, which is a whole section on its own. Did Rat give you guys a sample report?
In the file, he has a test plan example, 2 test plan examples, but he doesn't have an example of a report yet. Now, it might be in one of the other lessons that I haven't looked at.
So I know that will become based on last boot camps and things of travel on this journey. So that'll be coming. The report is very intimidating when you look at it. Tell me off the top of your head so actually, you know what? We actually discussed this already. What should be in the report? So, you have your findings, the assessment of the vulnerabilities, and severity based on, again, business process compared to other things. So the debriefing we just discussed, you guys all did a great job. Any questions that I can maybe answer before we move on to the next slide? Yeah, excellent question. So proof of concepts definitely are going to be in the report. So, that's usually with screenshots as well as a description. And this is a great case of communication skills. Huge. Everybody always talks about the technical skills, but communication skills are just as important, if not more. So, if you're just providing a, you're spitting out everything that was in your command line and just putting it on paper, that's not going to be very readable or digestible. Remember, the whole point of a pen test is for the client to be able to use this to better protect themselves. They need usable information. So, the proof of concept should have things like screenshots if you're able to provide them. Very, simplified but still extensive steps on what you did to exploit that vulnerability. And you want enough detail in there that it makes sense and it's something actionable, but you don't want to write a book about it. Especially, executives, they're not going to care. They're not going to want to know past. They just care, what is it? How does it affect me? How do you do it? So we can, take steps to. Which of the methodologies did I start with? You know, Rat may say something different, but I can tell you that if you examine them, it's really take a look at all of them and find which one fits you the best. They are all valid. He's, I think, going to go over in depth where each of them sort of lie. You'll notice that things like NIST have to do with business and government. You'll see OWASP has really great checklists for especially for web related things. They also have API checklists and things like that. OSSTMM also has some really great in-depth methodologies for doing pen tests. So really give them a look over. Personally, I really like the yes. It just makes a lot of sense to me. But again, you'll find some of, depending on the industry, some of them will fit better. But really, you can use any of these as a framework just to start. So I hope that answers your question. All right, so, man, one more question for you. Yeah, the OSSTM is really kind of popular. I know that one, and I mean NIST is also, the NIST framework. I think I've seen some clients actually request, depending on the industry, that you be familiar with a particular framework. Yeah, you can't go wrong with OSS or NIST, but don't feel like you have to be married to one or the other. All right, so moving on, because again, I definitely want to get to the last assignment. I know that 45 more minutes, so I want to make sure I get going in. Revision history. So the reason why revision history is important, if you didn't know, is when you're doing pen tests, depending on the type of organization, besides it being the best practice, some are required to have at least yearly pen tests. You really need to examine the revision history and log your revision history so that if you're performing pen test after you've already performed it, you're not going to want to test everything all over again. You definitely want to highlight in your test the things that were vulnerable before and make sure that they've been patched up, or if they're still vulnerable, if they've done any kind of remediation stuff. So, keeping your revision history is really, really important, and for compliance, for the organization. Target audience, that's been discussed. For who you're presenting to. Project description is again kind of self-explanatory. I know that there'll be more material on specifics to go into these with some of Rad's coursework. Testing objectives need to be very clear, very precise, and make sure that the client is in agreement with all of the objectives that laid out. Make sure that you have the same objectives that they're the ones that requesting the test. And again, all communication skills there. Roles and responsibilities. There is a lot there. For roles and responsibilities. So there's roles on your team, what everyone's going to do. There's the roles from the client, your point of contact, and if, for example, you're doing the test and a critical vulnerability is found, something that you can't do, and just sound the alarm and just scare everybody. So make sure that all of that is clearly defined. If something goes wrong, who you contact. Make sure that there's no question about this thing. If you get into trouble or if something does happen,
need to know who worked with that system. So, any, you know, again, I know we're kind of going through these really quickly. So want to make sure. Any other questions? Or anything to add to that? Revision that keep it professional, meaning, do you mean to make sure as a pen tester, giving your revision history looks more professional? Yeah, so when you're rechecking, you know, again, you're performing a pen test year after year with the same company, or if somebody else performed a pen test and, you know, you're coming in after as a new company to do the next one. Because, you know, penetration tests are sort of meant to continue a process. Security in general is a continuous process. So companies need to retest. When they do, a revision history should show the highlights of the past report, what was tested, what was suggested for remediation steps, your suggestions on how to fix the problem. Generally, we're not the ones who are going to fix it. We're, you know, giving them the solution of what they need to look into and do to fix these things. So revision history really gives the next tester, whether it's you or someone else, whether it's next year or next month, a real guideline on what to test next. Yes. That too. Absolutely. It does. It adds transparency. Excellent. Professor Chad has mentioned in the chat now. Some questions. I know that I know Wes has a lot of really good material on those methodologies and a lot more to add about them. There's going to be more on that as we go along. But again, the real takeaway that I want to give you right now is, like I mentioned, if you look at some of those, you know, the top 5 that I showed you there, if you read about each one, and there's some great links and summaries about each one, they, you know, can be very specific to certain industries or really sort of geared towards certain industries more than others. So I will let you read some of those on your own for now. Again, just because we're running out of time, I know that Wes will go in deeper when necessary. Does anybody have any questions about what the methodology is, what they are? I just want to make sure that's really, really clear, is that they are frameworks. So, you know, it really lays out in detail steps that, you know, you need to take. We talked about scope. We went, you know, a little deeper on that. We know why scope is so important. It's really what makes the test ethical. You know, one of the things that makes it really ethical. You know, when you're hacking unethically or gray hat or however you want to describe, you know, any other endeavors, there usually is no scope. You know, there's no bounds, there's no limits. You just go where you want, do what you want. The scope ensures that you're limited to exactly specifically what the client wants.
Mm.
Okay, then entry and exit criteria. Anybody have any ideas or preconceptions on what the entry and exit criteria could be? Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Is where to begin and end. It's yeah. So that's definitely one of the biggest parts of it. It's things we need to get first. Um, exactly. So as you may know, there are really a few different types of tests. There's a black box test, as they call it, which means that you're going in with very little to no prior knowledge. You know, you'll get an idea that's external and say, have at it and see what you can do. The even though that sounds really cool, time, there's usually a budget involved in these things, and a black box test, you're starting from the outside, looking in, and not getting very. A white box test is there, and there's things in between where they're giving you lots of information about the system already. Like they want something specifically tested, so specific network segment, specific set of servers, things like that, where they're just inviting them in the network already, or maybe even just an application. So the entry criteria would think things like source code, if they're going to provide you with that, passwords, uh, if that's what you need to do to test, really supply you with things that you need to get started to specifically do the thing. Exactly. All great answers. You guys are absolutely on board. Yeah, definitely. So then, knowing this, what would you think the exit criteria would be?
I would think that there'd be a few different exit criteria because obviously, I mean, from what I've seen so far, is that if you were to be able to get into a high level system, or for example, be able to get into a database, you end the test there. And but otherwise, there would be I guess an exit. It'd basically be a terminal exit and then a regular exit where you have the terminal like the database or high level system, or a regular exit where you've done the test, found the answers, made sure you didn't damage anything, and then from there you'll give your normal report.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, it doesn't always mean that the test will necessarily end there because, the difference is one of the big differences with a CTF, right? A capture the flag scenario. Once you get root and get in there, you're done. Your job is done. But if you identify multiple entry points, and you're able to get in with one, you definitely want to test the others, even though you've got in, to make sure that to see if there's some other steps.
Yeah, I was just bringing up because of the ethics of if you can break into the high level or database, that's a point where you have to terminate because that's important that gets looked at that point. And this is just what I've gotten from other courses I've been taking, and that's why I brought that up.
Sort of adding to that. Definitely. Um, time's up. Yeah, that's the thing. Also, you know, when are the deadlines met? You know, is the budget for the test? Are you reaching the edge of that? Um, objectives, articles fulfilled. Yeah, that's adding on to uh, the Mr. Miracle said that absolutely scope was for a week. We saw the report. Yeah, definitely. That's part of it. So you guys have a really good idea what that is. And is there anybody that has any questions? So far? If not, then we're gonna dive in here because we have a little less than a half hour. All right, so what Wes had in store is we're gonna split into our teams. We're going to make a full test plan of hacksplit.com. So I'm gonna put just so I mean I'm pretty sure everybody knows, but I'm gonna make sure we have the right URL. So you know, again, does not be perfect. Just do the best you can from those steps, from the necessary things, scope, the things we went over. Even if it's just a brief description, let's work up a test plan. Now, the template that he provided, I did. Let's see. Okay. So in the day one material, it looks like there's a couple of test plan examples. So you guys have the right idea. You may want to, so base your new file off of the last one you started, and you might use that as a starting template, and start to make a testing plan. So yeah, for scope, I was actually just about to bring that up. Is so you can make a dummy scope, but you can kind of infer some things about the scope, right? Like it's specifically a test plan for hacksford.com. So it's unlikely that you're going to be doing any physical testing. It'll be a little easier to do out of scope. And let's just assume, I guess, for the sake of the argument, I'm going to tell you that scope is limited to, say, wildcard.hacksford.com. So any subdomains of Hacksford, including hacksford.com. Feel free to jump up and chat for any questions. And I'm going to give you guys until maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes we'll be back and we'll present before sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Anaha Wallaby. Good. Going to team 2. I just gave you gave you the tag. You are the newest member of Team 2.
Mm. Mm.
You getting your base together here. I'm looking into the future a little bit. Syllabus. It looks like day 2 is actually going to start off going deeper into those methodologies. So um, definitely don't worry if we didn't go deep enough into like OSSTMM, OWASP, or NIST, any of those, because we're going to dive in deeper on day 2. So, again, just really focus on the takeaway today is being able to write a basic test plan and sort of organize it in your head and visualize what
mm, 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 mm. Mm, 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 mm,
All right. Oh.
mm, 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 mm.
the other people on the other teams a minute or so to come back. I know we're running out of time. Anybody in here? I see team one is mostly in their voice chat, but is anybody here from team one? The entirety of team one is still in the. Let me jump in. I'll be right back. All right, so they're just finishing up. We're going to start with, we have a representative from team two here. I think he's still finishing up too. So we'll start with team three. Great. So I'm going to share my screen. It'll probably be a little bit easier because we ended up doing a lot. That's fine. Seconds. Did everyone see my screen? Can everyone hear my screen? See my screen? Yeah. Excellent. So our client was hackspert.com, prepared by team 3. 8. We have our table of contents here, our objectives, get a reverse application, and get information that's confidential included in the scope. Our target audiences are the web developers, if they maybe have like a webmaster or they're outsourcing that, their communications team. Mostly they'll be involved in well as well as our IT cybersecurity staff. So our tests, or our test strategy, our schedule. This is our start date, our end date, and in scope was hackspert.com. And out of scope was the subdomains, the API testing, brute forcing, and SQL injection. So for methodology, we chose OWASP top 20 and CWE top 55. The project description is it's a for Hackspert. So again, just hackspert.com. The confidential information that can promise anything from the company. So we have 4 of us here from team 3. The chat should be, I think, should be 5 here. Tools. These are some of the tools that we're going to use. Probably Burp Suite and Zap proxies ones. Obviously, we had notice of engagement. Yes, an entry criteria that we started brainstorming like for this. We also do a little bit of information gathering. We did some DNS integrations, interrogations. So just doing a little bit of effort there. Just it was very low. It was very easy to get this. But just looking at just for what the zone is, if they had any subdomains, where these IPs are putting back, where they're pointing back to, where it's hosted at. We found out when it was hosted. And then, so that again, that was a very low effort to do. So we did that pretty quickly. And then completion sign offs in case all conditions that were indicated and performed. The testing process is supposed to be finished. All test cases have been run, except out of scope. All detections have been posted. Test results have been sent. Have been requested, and we have a conclusion. But that's what we got in a lot of time.
Wow, that's great. Hey guys, back. Sorry, my internet was messing up. It's good that you guys have been. Wow. I'm really
Thank
impressed.
you, Brad. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. My internet decided to crap out on me. I don't know what was going on there. Anyway, it's already 2 a.m. I see. We're
Just, I kind of, went through some of the rest of the slides with them, and they're actually just presenting, their test plans for Hacksport.
perfect. You
And if I could just mention one thing, that was an excellent looking test plan. One small critique would just be that, although it is very, very cool that you did that, a little bit of recon there, probably, in a real life pen test, you would wait with any of that, just in case, you have a really sensitive client and you end up, doing that recon before they've kind of agreed to it. But also in a real pen test, you wouldn't have to think about the subdomains because the client should be providing you with them. So I understand it's not a typical one on both ends, but seriously, excellent, excellent work.
Thank you.
All right, so, um, Rat, I'm gonna pass it to you, and that was team three. We started with team three, so it's 1, 2, and 4 are left.
all right? If you guys are up for it, I would like to continue with the assignment and see what you guys made.
Well, for team one, we're ready to go, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Haven't fully read it yet again, but I'm ready to go. So I guess our headings are, well, we'll start off with the objectives one. So the objectives of the pen test are finding injection vulnerabilities in Hackspert and subdomains that are in scope. Project description, which is the next heading. The intent to find vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the system and report any findings, good and bad, so that the client is able to improve their web page's safety and protect the company as well as their clients that they have using their product. Scope. The scope is limited to the following web application sites, which is as listed as in the assignment. And additionally, the scope is, okay, so it's basically just trying to find any subdomains that would be applicable for that. So tools. The tools being used are Burp Suite, Zap, OWASP Zap, Arachne, Nmap, Wapiti, Wafwoof, SQL Map. So target audience is the management, software developers, security engineers, system administrators, additional IT staff of hackexpert.com, and likewise all the domains. Methodology is OWASP Top 10 and OSSTMM. Completion will be considered to have occurred if any of the following have taken place. All intended methods and conditions have been tested for security. A highly vulnerable area has been found and will terminate the pen test immediately at that point. Time of test has been completed and there's no additional time given. Budget has been approached and there's no additional budget permission given. Confirmation of the test completion has occurred from the client. The report is also it would be another one. The report is complete, regardless of all the above. Strategy for finding injections would be hit and miss, or hit and try as written here. Strategy. Payload would be injected in each input field to check if the field is vulnerable. Results. There are 2 SQL injections found in hackexpert.com at the following locations, and the websites are listed for those injections, the SQL injections that are found. And that's some of our report.
That sounds really good. I noticed you focused heavily on injections there. Is that the only type of vulnerability that you're trying to go for? Or was it
I think that's where we ran out of time.
Perfect. Like, the thing with that is, I would have, the injections is definitely something you can focus on. but I would have said just looking for vulnerabilities. Because now you make it seem like you're only going to look for injections like SQL injection and LDAP injection. And
Right, and that's why I said earlier, or that we had in our report that we're looking for all potential vulnerabilities, and I forget what the exact word is. All potential vulnerabilities, and so basically, so yeah, the idea is to look for all findings, good and bad, vulnerabilities and weaknesses,
indeed.
not just injection vulnerabilities. Oh,
Yeah, and like you were really professional about the section where the exit criteria. That I like that. Like you say, budget is gone. That's something that a lot of people don't realize, that budget and time are two different things. Yeah, of course.
yeah, well, I'm just trying to apply what I've already previously learned. Just because I know that there's probably so many people here, and it seems like there are people here who have already been doing lots of pen testing and have got lots of experience in this. So just trying to do the best I can here for the team and for the class.
Awesome, you're doing really well. Good job, Team 3. Oh no,
Yeah, it's team one.
sorry, Team 1.
I'll just say too is that it's you guys did an excellent. It's also remember you're gonna have plenty of room. I want to remind all of you, you're gonna have plenty of room later on. Not in this, day one, but we're gonna be doing a full report, later on. So this is really just the test plan phase. So you guys are killing it. It's awesome. Nice work.
Exactly, great remark there. On the last day, we're going to do the full pen test. So now you've made the test plan a little bit. On the last day, we're going to reuse that and fill it until we have everything. And then we're actually going to test Hexpert according to a checklist that we have or to a methodology. Good job again. Really appreciated that. If you guys want, you can copy a link to your Excel, to your Word documents, and paste it in the general chat or in the extra resources. That way we have an idea of your how you did as well, so we can share it more easily.
I think we still have two more teams left.
Yep, exactly. Team number 2 is up next, I think. You guys maybe need some more time to.
Hey, you guys.
Hey,
So, Mike, can you please do it?
I was gonna ask if you could do it, so I can't share right now.
do you guys have a link to the document?
Yeah, we have it right here.
If you send it, I'll present it. Perfect. Oh, right, I have to share my screen, of course. There we go. Let's see. So we have before.
Just to inform you that we ran out of time and we are only two members team, so this will be easy on us.
It looks really good. Don't worry too much about it. It looks really good. So before engagement, after engagement. Yep. And then the pen testing methodology has been chosen. Test plan.
No, you can go down.
Yeah,
This is where we started. Yes. Okay.
OWASP methodology will be used. What I usually say is OWASP web security testing guide will be used. Something along those lines, because OWASP has so much testing guides. In this case, the one that would apply most would be the web testing guide. Scope is good. payment. Perfect. So you said other applications running on the server. I also like that because sometimes I don't say that's out of scope, and you will actually have to look for those subdomains.
Yeah, for example, if the server hosts several other web applications that we might come across, so we put those out of scope.
Exactly. And then you say the exit criteria when root access is gained or budget is exhausted. That's really good already. Maybe put in there when all test cases have been applied or something like that, or executed.
We ran out of time.
Yeah. But what you have is already really good. It's basically, yeah.
So for 15 minutes and members.
Yeah, exactly. You did really well there. So good job. And especially here, like, this is what is most important. You need to know what documents you need before and after the engagement.
This is from the exercise we had, exercise number 1.
Exactly. And then you can expand on it.
Okay.
And then we have the last team, team number 4, I think. Is anybody from team 4 wanting to present, or you can just send us the link as well, of course, and we can have a look. Feel free to just send me the link if you can't present right now.
I feel like you see the extra resources that channel.
Sorry?
I think my teammates sent the PowerPoint on the extra resources channel.
Super. Yep, exactly. All right, let's have a look. Export test point target. I wouldn't write like this to my customer. Let's see, this document creation. Yep, perfect. Let's see, document goals.
I think the main part is the reference to the sample test plan in a folder that in the table resources, and the layout is similar to the
All right, so audience. Alright, deploying system for following features. I like this. This is something that is very important to me. We will get more into this later, but the features, I always try to make a mind map of what features I have available, because then I can make like a checklist. If I have that feature checked, I can check it off my checklist. But that's a really good one. I like that. And then for the glossary, perfect. You explain like what a risk is, for example. Great that you explained that. For the rest, we have testing objectives. Customer sensitive data safe. X. Yeah, that sounds good. The testing objectives really nice. Roles and responsibilities. Yeah, you can just fill in that. But the methodology testing process is done by OWASP 10 2021 and other vulnerabilities outside it. The methodologies cover this following: info gathering, subdomain enumeration, testing against OWASP top 10. Nice. And other vulnerabilities. Nice. I like that. Then testing scope target and scope target / web application pen test. Auto scope ABN or mobile. Okay. And then of course we have automate vulnerability scanning via Google. Nessus is a vulnerability scanner. Nicto is a vulnerability scanner. Really good. Another list of deliverables. Test plan. Test report. That's really good. I like that. That's a good test plan. Not completely yet, of course, but most important things are there, so it's definitely a good one. Just to make sure that they don't catch you. Let's see. So did already really good work. Tomorrow we are going to continue with. So we did the rest right. You guys did the test plan. And
We didn't read through the test plan again, the other documents, but I think that's something we could do on our own too.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. But you did the PowerPoint, right?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. We didn't read through the
Ah.
PowerPoint for a test plan, but we could do that on our own. I mean,
Well,
Definitely.
that's what, yeah, the part that we read was for the test point.
oh, was it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
reading from the PowerPoint for my talking points, so. Yep.
Awesome. I really like that. Thank you very much for taking over from me there for a moment.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't share my screen, but I was reading from the PowerPoint. You all should have it in the course materials. In the
Yes, no, it's document 003. Yeah, we just wanted to keep things going while we were trying to figure out what was going on with you.
Yeah, perfect. I really appreciate that. So, what I have on screen right now is one of those notices of engagement. So just a letter of engagement. I'm going to use these IP addresses. I always include a little message as well for the person to send out an email. So if I'm talking to like an HR person, they can copy that and they can send it over to people. And then I include my IP addresses, and for the tools that I'm going to use, you guys all put that in this document, which is perfect. Nothing wrong with that. But it's also good to put that in a annex or like an attachment, because that way I can reuse that attachment for later on. I can just say, look at my tool list, look at my attachment, and then I want my signatures, of course, and I'm not gonna engage before I get that signature, even if that means that I'm gonna miss my deadline. Rather miss my deadline and be like completely fine than having to attack a target, which after all I turned out not to have any rights to attack and then land up in jail. So I really always hammer on that. How would I do it? This is my short.
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt there.
Of course.
But at the very top there, you say that this is not test is not public and should not be shared internally.
Yeah.
But shouldn't that actually be internally and externally? Because internally is inside the company and externally be outside the company.
Oh yeah, it can definitely be internally and out and externally. Yeah, I totally agree.
Just it looks like something that maybe could be added in to help the wording be a bit cleaner. Also, I did notice on one of your slides that you had proof, but it should have been prove with the VE instead.
Oh, crap. Yeah, sorry, I'm a
I
dyslexic.
can help you out with that if you want. I'm because of what I used to do. I catch spelling errors so quick, or grammar errors very quickly.
Yeah, it's I'm very bad at that stuff, so I'll definitely be contacting you.
Hey,
So the great remark, by the way. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. That definitely shouldn't be shared outside of the organization either, because of course this contains our IP addresses. And for me, my test plan itself, it looks very similar to your guys'. So I have a revision, the document goals, in which I just explain what I want to do with this document itself. Um, for me, it's all about communication, so I'm gonna. Jeez, annoying computer. For me, it's all about communication, so I try to make that clear as well. Seeing what they can expect from me, that's something that I want to make clear with this document. And like it says here, managers can read it, project managers, CTOs, developers, and testers in my case. I want them to read my file and I want them to implement the testing in the CI/CD lifecycle. And then the project description, which basically says what I'm hacking. What I've used for that is OWASP to test as well, but I will be using mostly the OWASP security web security test guide. So OWASP web security testing guide. Tomorrow we will see much more about these methodologies, but for now, you can see that OWASP had, let's see, the latest. Here we go. So these are a lot of interesting ideas that OWASP throws up. And you can see here they divide the pen test into phases before the development begins, during definition and design, during development, during deploy, and during maintenance and operations. So what they want to do is they want to be as close to the source code as possible, to do unit testing on a security level already, and then whatever cannot be tested on a unit level or integration level has to be tested on the automatic level. But these are security requirements and they are usually not automated. At least from what I've seen, people tend to skip automating these in favor of more regular scenarios. So it starts with information gathering, of course. I'm going to see what I have in front of me. Then I'm going to test the configuration and deployment. So I'm going to do tests for HTTP methods, testing for file permissions, blah, blah, blah. Identity management here. This is an interesting one for me. Authentication testing and authorization testing, two different things. And then we have session management testing, input validation, and then we have these injections, as you guys mentioned before. They are very big and broad, so it always helps to give the client a little bit of help there. Like saying we're testing for the OWASP top 10 injections, but that is injections based on, and you can say CL, like the new line injection, command injection, format string injection. As you can see, it's more than just the normal SQL injection that we're all used to. Then we have the error handling as well. Testing for recrypto, client-side testing. So that's a whole lot of things that we can test for and that we basically have to test for. All of these things, I just put them in the test plan. So I literally copy and paste everything I'm gonna test for into my test plan. And it's easier for me because I have my Notion right here and I can copy and paste it. And I actually do that as an attachment as well. I will enter my web hacking methodology so they can use it later on for themselves. This is the tool that I wanted to show you before. Are you okay, my friend? That didn't sound healthy. So the tool that I wanted to show you before, I want you to pay close attention to this tool and actually the dorks that it gives you, because then you can change them up a little bit yourself. You can find that fit you better. I don't know if I already put it in the chat, but I will put it there again. Yeah, I did put it in the chat. All right, perfect. If team 2 and team 1 want, they can also, I think team 2 put the course material in the general chat. There you go. Copy. Oh, no, that's not what I need. Copy link message. Gonna throw that in here as well for team 2. There we go. All right, perfect. So you guys did really well today. I'm very proud of you, everybody, and thank you very much, Aiten, for taking over for a moment. I really appreciate it. Tomorrow we will be looking at the Pentesting methodologies. What I find most important there is that we're going to learn what methodology to pick in what situation. A lot of people don't realize that you have different methodologies that are aimed at different things. But that's what we're going to see tomorrow, and then we're going to pick the correct methodology, and then of course finally the day after tomorrow we can start with some real port scanning, FTP hacking, SMB hacking, the usual hacking. But these first 2 days, they're a little bit annoying in the sense that they're very theoretical, but that's why we try to add some exercises in them as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If there's anything else I can do for you, of course, please let me know. I don't have anything else for you guys today. I will be in the chat though, so if you need me, feel free to just call me or ask me. I'm just gonna be here for another half an hour or something like that. I'm gonna stop the recording.